Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start. Let me just tell you a couple of things by way of introduction. For those of you who may be from out of town and don't know me, my name is Elise Armacost. It's E-L-I-S-E. A-R-M as in Mary, A-C-O-S-T. I'm the spokesperson for Baltimore County Police Department. To my right is Chief Jim Johnson, who most of you know. Evan Cohen is the colonel in charge of the Criminal Investigations Bureau. And to my right, this is Major Woodland Wilson, who is the major in charge of tactical operations. What we're going to do today is very similar to what we did yesterday. The chief is going to talk to you with a brief overview of some of the updates. I know there are a lot of questions that we've been fielding all morning that we have not answered most of them yet. We have released some new information. This is a complicated case. We've taken a lot of time to get as much information as we can out to you. I think you're going to have a lot to work with when you leave here today. Everything that the chief and I talk about today, we will post to our news blog probably during the course of this interview. So you'll be able to go back to your news stations and pull that up and see everything that we're discussing in writing, so that should make it easier for you. That's going out on all of our social media platforms to anybody who wants to see it. There are also supporting documents that we're going to be putting out. The police report for the March 10th traffic stop involving Miss Gaines we've already released, and some of you have already reported. And then there are some other police records that we're going to be releasing as well. Okay? So with that being said, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Chief Jim Johnson.
Good afternoon. What I'm going to do, again, is walk you through what happened at around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and then we'll go back from that point, and I'll take several questions to help you prepare your story. At 9:20 a.m., several Baltimore County warrant service members responded to the unit block of Salke Court to serve 2 arrest warrants. A warrant for Mrs. Gaines from an incident that occurred in March of this year during a traffic stop. And as Ms. Armacost has stated, that document is available to you to read and report on. The other warrant was for the other occupant in the home, Mr. Kareem Courtney. It was an assault warrant that was taken out by Mrs. Gaines due to a domestic assault that had occurred weeks prior. The officers began to knock on the door, the apartment door. Again, this is the 1960s, 70s style apartment complex with the 4 units downstairs and several units above. Repeatedly, the officers announced their presence, their intent. They repeatedly tried to get the occupants to the front door. They heard a female's voice. They heard a male's voice. They heard a crying child inside the apartment. After approximately 10 minutes, they retrieved a key from apartment management, turned the lock, door opens slightly, and is secured by the standard security chain that we're all familiar with. They could clearly see a female that they believed to be Miss Gaines seated on the floor, a child nearby who immediately began to wield a shotgun around, bringing it up to ready position, pointing it directly at the officers there to serve the arrest warrants. The officers immediately retreated, took cover in the hallway of this structure, and immediately began dialogue with her, summoning tactical and support personnel. At 9:40 a.m., tactical personnel began to take up positions, inner and outer perimeters, negotiation by both trained hostage negotiation personnel. Within minutes, the male occupant of the home exited the home with a child. We do not know why he didn't take both children. One child. He exited the home and was taken into custody on the outstanding warrant that we had. Things are going well, up and down. There were times when we thought this would come to a peaceful resolution, closure. There are other times that she was highly agitated. The entire time, throughout the afternoon, she repeatedly would point the weapon at our personnel, and they maintained firearms discipline throughout those numerous incidents. At approximately 4 in the afternoon, she again brought the weapon up to the ready position, announced to one or more of the tactical team personnel, "If you don't leave, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." At that point, a tactical officer discharged the round. We do not know if that round struck Mrs. Gaines. She in turn fired several rounds at us of double-aught buck. No officer was struck. Our personnel returned 3 rounds of fire, striking her and killing her. Obviously, as we immediately went in to render medical aid and assistance, we detected that the child was injured as well. We do not know at this moment in time if the child was struck by our round, her round, shrapnel from our round, shrapnel from her round. We do not know at this moment in time. Let's talk about a couple issues here, and then I'll get into questions that you may have. The gun possessed by Mrs. Gaines, a Mossberg 12-gauge shotgun with a pistol grip. Again, double-aught buck was used to fire at us. Let's talk about social media accounts. I understand that's an issue for one or more in the room. We did, in fact, reach out to social media authorities to deactivate her account, to take it offline, if you will. Why? In order to preserve the integrity of the negotiation process with her and for the safety of our personnel. Her child, Gaines, was posting video of the operation as it unfolded. Followers were encouraging her not to comply with negotiators' request that she surrender peacefully. So you can see the utility of taking that action. The content of Gaines' account has not been deleted. I want to stress that. Only deactivated. We filed a request through Facebook to preserve as evidence the account. We're in the process now of securing and satisfying the requirements of search warrant to obtain these records and memorialize these documents. We do not have the ability or authority to deactivate social media accounts on their own. Facebook maintains law enforcement portal through which requests for assistance can be made under these exigent circumstances. And clearly, you can see this was an exigent circumstance where life and serious injury were in jeopardy. Mrs. Gaines' associate in her apartment, Kareem Courtney, 39 years of age. Again, we've covered that issue, an outstanding arrest warrant for assault on her that occurred weeks prior. Let's go back to March the 10th, the start of our interaction with her. Again, Gaines was being served with a failure to appear bench warrant issued by the court, stemming from charges from that March the 10th, 2016 traffic stop. Ms. Gaines was stopped driving a silver Toyota Camry with no license plate, only a rectangular piece of cardboard written on the cardboard, Any government official who compromises this pursuit to happiness and right to travel will be held criminally responsible and fined. This is a natural right to freedom. Ms. Gaines obviously was arrested in that incident for the traffic charges as well as disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. I'm going to stop at that point. Again, Elise will answer the majority of your questions, but I will take several at this moment in time.
Chief, why was it so important for the officers to press ahead? I presume she wasn't threatening her own child. So why not de-escalate this whole exchange by falling back?
We did fall back. We took positions of cover. We summoned in equipment and trained negotiators. We have an individual who committed a first-degree assault on police officers, pointing a shotgun at them. We have warrants for her arrest. For hours, we pleaded with her to end this peacefully. We were concerned about the safety of the child.
Did she threaten the child?
We were concerned about the safety of the child.
Chief Gaines, you said when you all first opened the door that the door was locked with a standard security chain. How were officers able to see that Ms. Gaines had a shotgun in her lap? Because from her video, it looks as though she was sitting from a position where you wouldn't be able to see her if the door was chain locked.
I don't know if her position changed when she posted those videos. They were changing position throughout the 7 hours. I don't know precisely when she posted that. But again, my familiarity with those devices is you generally get about 3 or 4 inches of view, okay? So clearly the officers knew that they had a subject that they believed to be the individual named in the arrest warrant. Next
Who
question.
were the officers that first approached the door, that she would have had first contact with? What were they wearing?
We have several officers in warrant service gear, which would be gear that showed police officer. We had standard uniformed officers there as well.
Was she or someone else go on?
Was that initial, do you believe that that initial entry with the key from the landlord is a legal entry?
We're looking at the entry using the key at this time.
Chief, yesterday some of the family members stressed that they weren't utilized properly due to her distrust of the police department. Your response?
We are following standard trained procedure, time tested. The intervention of family members, well, you could argue, could de-escalate sometimes, not so much. We have trained personnel that are using licensed individuals that specialize in this field that we also use for these negotiations.
Were you looking into?
I'll take 2 more questions.
Are you looking into who shot the little boy, whether it was your fire or hers?
We are.
And when will you be able to tell us?
We don't know. Wait, let me answer a question. We are obviously very focused on what round, her round, our round, a piece of shrapnel. We don't know at this point in time. I'm optimistic that some additional evidence will add clarity to this issue, but we don't know.
Exactly,
You know how
where
many
was
people
the
fired
child? Where was the child?
How many of your people actually fired?
We have 1 officer, to my knowledge, that is fired. It was a point officer. These are specialized positions, and we have 1 officer that fired.
Where was the child? Precisely where was the child when the officer fired the first time and then again?
We don't know. We are looking at that issue. Was he 2 inches away? Was he in her grasp? Was he 4 foot away? We know the child was, as a 5-year-old would, was moving about. We know there were times when she had the child. We know there were times he had him on the floor. He was standing up. So we don't know at this moment in time precisely where that child was at the moment those shots were fired.
Have the officers given statements?
No.
How about body cameras? Have y'all determined
We
that?
started our training program for body cameras on July the 2nd. I have approximately 40 officers in the agency that have been trained. There were no officers wearing body cameras that were involved in a direct conflict at this incident site.
Were there any other incidents where she verbally stated, "I'm going to kill you officers before 4 p.m.?
We are looking into precisely what was said throughout the afternoon. We're transcribing the tapes of the dialogue between the hostage negotiators and tactical
So you
personnel.
were
One more
recording this
question.
incident.
Do you know where the child was shot?
The child has sustained a wound to the arm, and I understand at least the child's listed today in
Good condition.
All right, with that, I'm going to stop and allow Elise to either answer questions or take questions and get back with you a response. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think what I'm going to do first is kind of run through the other material that I prepared to get it out there to you, and then I'll take some questions, and we'll try to keep track of questions that I can answer so that we can do those on the next round of follow-ups. The child is, as we just mentioned, remains at Johns Hopkins Children's Hospital. He is in good condition. We just spoke to the hospital moments before we came down here. As the chief said, I've been trying to investigate this question of where precisely the child was. As the chief said, that's still under investigation. It is unclear exactly where he was when the shots were fired. However, the tactical officers have confirmed that he was moving about the apartment, mostly in the kitchen area, throughout the barricade. The gun, the shotgun that she used, I'm going to try to provide a photo either of it or of a gun like it. Before the end of the day, our homicide detectives have confirmed that she bought that gun last year. We have the documentation proving that she purchased that weapon. As far as the social media accounts go, I think the chief covered that pretty well. Does anyone have any other questions about the issue with Facebook? Yes, sir.
Well, her Instagram account now, videos have been deleted as well.
Correct.
Have you all made contact with Instagram?
Facebook owns Instagram.
Well, but there's only one video. There are a couple videos. There's a video of her loading a shotgun last week that's been deleted, as well as the video showing officers in a position. Have you all told Instagram to delete those videos because her whole account's not deactivated?
Let me go over this again. Police do not have the ability or the authority to delete or deactivate social media accounts.
Well, have you asked Instagram to delete certain videos?
We did not ask Facebook, which owns Instagram, to delete anything. We don't want it deleted because it's evidence. What we asked them to do during the barricade yesterday was to deactivate those accounts, to take them offline so they were not visible, in order to preserve the integrity of the negotiation. We were concerned, when you're negotiating, and I know I've seen some comments on social media about why weren't there hostage negotiators. There were. I'm sorry, I can't say that. That's a hard thing to say. There are hostage negotiators at just about every barricade that we have, whose job is to try to reason with, talk with, converse with the subject in an effort to bring them out peacefully. We have barricades pretty often, and most of them end fine. This one, unfortunately, did not. So it's key for these trained negotiators to be able to interact with the subject without distraction, without interference from the outside. So we asked for a deactivation of her Facebook and Instagram platforms. To do that, it doesn't happen instantly. As the tactical team was explaining to me today, you have to file a request with Facebook through this portal. Facebook evaluates the request for whatever it is that you're asking for, and they make the determination about whether they feel that it is worthy of being filled. So Facebook is the one that makes the determination about whether those accounts come offline. We do not have the authority to do it. It took us about an hour yesterday to get Facebook to make that decision and take them offline.
Please, what was she saying to the negotiators?
What was she saying to the negotiators?
What was she saying? Well, you waited 6 hours. What was she saying?
Right. I will have to ask them specifically what kinds of things she was saying. Now, some of it you can hear on some of these videos, but I will go back when I'm done here and try to clarify that. I did talk to them about sort of what her demeanor was. They said she was very up and down, She started obviously extremely agitated. She would calm down, as the chief said. We were hopeful we were going to end this calmly. Then she became agitated, and again, as the incident progressed through the afternoon, until the climax of the incident was when she pointed the gun.
Was there any attempt to do some other kind of force? I know the chief is not a big fan of tasers. Sometimes they're not appropriate in a situation like that. Was there any other attempt to do something?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. There was not. That was not a possibility here. But yeah, the taser was not used. We were doing what we do with hostage situations, or excuse me, with these kinds of barricade situations, trying to reason with the person to get them to surrender peacefully.
Was there any thought of bringing body cams during the 6 hours of getting a camera there?
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you
Was
just
there
said.
any thought of getting a camera there during the 6-hour barricade so that...
I'll have to ask that question. I don't know.
Was there any attempt to have friends and family call Ms. Gaines during the standoff?
I believe her father was involved in the negotiation, or at least working with our people. Is that correct, Major?
That is correct.
Okay.
Knowing the specifics of the video, like, was this a live stream thing that she posted, like, during it, or was it, like, did she record for a while? Like, how long was it?
She was live streaming, is my understanding. I have not seen the video, so it would be easier for me to answer your question if I had.
Your department there were 5 people killed by Baltimore County Police last year, 3 people shot this year, and Ms. Gaines being the first person. The other 2 individuals shot this year. What were their race?
I can't remember. We can find that for you. I just can't remember.
And what kind of continuing training or education have you guys been doing with dealing with members of the public who are minorities, especially with increased police scrutiny?
Well, I mean, we're one of the 20th or 25th largest police agencies in the United States, and we certainly are well aware of the issues that we're dealing with in the country at this time, and we take those very seriously. We have a very diverse population here. We feel that overall we have an extremely good relationship with our constituencies. And we recognize that successful policing means that you have to continue that, and you have to work at that day in and day out. And the success of that isn't contingent on a camera, although obviously we feel that's an important tool. The success of that depends on our officers cultivating relationships day in and day out in our communities. And the chief is adamant about that, and certainly it is a top priority for us to continue to build those relationships.
Did police know that there was a gun, legally purchased gun, in the home before they served the warrant?
I don't believe so. No, we had
And it
no way
was
of knowing
legally
that.
purchased.
That is my understanding. Homicide says they have the documentation. I haven't seen it yet, but yes.
Were your officers aware that went to the house that she had made statements in March that were...
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Were they aware that she had made prior statements
I am
about
not
activity
sure.
with police?
I am not sure if the officers who went to serve the warrant, and feel free to correct me here if I'm wrong, did the officer? I'm not sure that those officers knew.
I can't.
About
That's a question I could
yes.
ask.
Knew what? Could you characterize what it is you're talking about?
I'm sorry. Jane's question is, I believe, did the 3 officers who served the warrant, who went to serve the warrant for the March 10th traffic incident, were they aware of some of her anti-government views? Is that your
It was
question?
on the video, correct.
Yes. And the answer is, I do not know whether those 3 officers who were on the warrant service team were aware of her anti-government views.
Would the warrant for Mr. Kareem Cortland, was it?
Kareem Courtney.
Kareem
Courtney.
Courtney. It was a domestic, you said it was a domestic
Correct.
warrant? Was there any attempt by the negotiators to calm her as she was a victim in that situation?
There was every attempt by the negotiators to calm her and to encourage her to leave the apartment peacefully.
And Mr. Courtney, did he run out of the apartment or did he surrender?
He left the apartment. Whether he was walking or running, I don't know. He was apprehended by officers as he tried to
And
leave.
what's his status?
He's released on his own
Well,
recognizance.
where did he exit from the apartment? Was there a different door?
I think he went out the door. He went out the front door.
Was the father the only one of the family members involved in the negotiation process?
I don't know. I'll have to ask. Major, was he?
We'll talk about it.
I don't know.
How did he leave the front? I mean, they're at the front door, right? The officers, and then he just walked into them or walked past them, or?
He went to leave and was apprehended. At whether he was apprehended right there at the threshold or whether he bolted and got further is a question I'd have to ask. I don't know.
And Miss Gaines did have an open complaint against Baltimore County Police, right?
I'm not. She may
Was
have.
there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Could you speak to whether her anti-government or sovereign citizen roots might have Moorish American ties, or whether that?
Yeah, we're looking into that. I cannot confirm that she was a member of any particular group. We may be able to shed some light on that eventually. What I can say is that she clearly had anti-government views. You see that very clearly in her interactions on the March 10th traffic stop. She's not using any kind of required registration. She's got this handwritten piece of cardboard that says she doesn't, whatever it says, something about her not, that any government official who compromises my right to travel is criminally responsible. She engaged in a physical fight with officers who tried to, when they tried to remove her from the vehicle to have it towed. So we don't know if she belonged to any specific anti-government body, but we do know that she espoused anti-government views.
If Miss Gaines instead of a black sovereigntist, if she was a white woman with white supremacist views, do you think she'd be alive today?
I think if the same situation evolved with a person of any race or ethnicity, we would have the same outcome.
Has there been any discussion of making any changes to the body camera rollout program, expediting the process in light of what happened?
This just happened yesterday. There's been no discussion about that now. When we announced, this is a very ambitious program, and we're not a small agency. We have 1,900 officers. So the rollout of the first 150 cameras this year involves training 10 officers per week until those first 150 cameras are out in the field. So, you know, unless you put them all out there and everybody at once, which we did not feel was a good idea because of the complexity of the program, we wanted to do this right. You know, we always knew that there was a possibility that you were going to have a situation like this in the early stages of the program where you had an incident where you wish you had that footage, and we certainly wish we do. We think it would clarify a lot of questions for people, but we just don't have it. That's just the way they had it.
There is some speculation that she was using her son as a shield. Can you address that?
No, I can't confirm that.
This would know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me speak to what he's briefed me on. What we know about the son is this: Mr. Courtney leaves with one child, the younger of the two boys. She keeps the older of the boys with her. Why either of them did what they did, we don't know. The younger child is near her during the duration of this event. We cannot confirm that she was holding him at the time of the shooting. We certainly cannot confirm that she was using him as a shield. And while our tactical officers observed her shotgun pointed in his direction or at him, we can't say whether that was deliberate or whether, she just was wielding the gun around without paying attention to where it was.
Did she make any threat about her son? Stated threat?
Not that I'm aware of.
When she made a threat to the officers and said, "Leave or I'll kill you," was there, it seems like there was a clear opportunity for the officers to leave and regroup and re-strategize rather than shoot. Have y'all talked to the officer about what that decision?
Our officers exercised extreme patience in this situation. She was threatening from the moment she pointed that gun at the three officers who went to serve the warrant. We were there for, well, basically for 6 to 7 hours trying to talk right. And as those of you who cover daily news know, sometimes barricades go on for a very, very long time. The goal is to stay as long as it takes to get someone to come out. However, when someone points a gun directly at an officer and threatens to shoot them, it very well may not end well. And that is the situation we had in this case. Let me just, a couple other things that I don't want to miss before we dismiss. The arrest warrant charging her with first-degree assault on that first officer that she pointed a gun on was secured from the district court commissioner immediately, so we have that warrant. We'll publish that for you. We've talked about the staging and the position of the children. I've talked about the negotiators and how they talked to her. Body cameras. We did consult with mental health professionals during the course of this barricade based on some information that we had about her. I've already talked to you about the fact that she did point the gun at the child, but we don't know if that was deliberate or just incidental. I think that is about everything.
She had mental health issues in the past?
I don't want to get into medical information because without consulting with my people first, because you get into some protected areas there. I will say we consulted with mental health professionals during the barricade yesterday.
You said based on information that you had.
That's correct, but I'm not going to tell you what that information is until I talk to our attorneys and make sure it's disclosable information.
Did all this take place in the doorway? We've all seen that video. So essentially, were the officers who ended up shooting her, were they just standing in that same
Let me
space?
describe this scenario. So you have an apartment. You know, there's you walk into the apartment, then there's an open area, and there's a kitchen. The officer spent the entire time just outside that doorway. They did not cross the threshold into the apartment. But she was visible to them most of the time, and they were visible to her much of the time. Okay? All right, I think that is everything I have right now. We are going to go back, publish this for you all, put some of those documents out, and you have our emails, of course. If you have additional questions, we'll do our best. Okay? Thank you all for your time.